Hi, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another exclusive session in CH Tribe's Career Accelerator Sundays. I'm Nitya from Clever Harvey, and I'll be hosting today's session on the topic Growth of Analytics in Sports with our special guest speaker, Mr. Victor Tarapore. In the past, we believed that a career in sports is limited and the field is really difficult to break into. But what if your team could be the next big thing in the sports arena? Maybe not as a player, but something much more exciting. Tapping into their interests and skills could help you create a viable and fulfilling career. Today's session will aim to provide you with some more clarity on the matter. Victor is a manager at the Data Lab at Star Sports India. Previously stationed in Australia, he has relocated to Mumbai to pursue his passion in sports. Victor has 8 years of experience in the industry, 4 years of which have been in broadcast, and is joining us today to discuss. Without further ado, let's kickstart today's session. Over to you, Victor.
Thank you, Nitya, and a very good morning to everyone out there. I hope some of my insights might be able to help you in some way. I'm going to kick things off by just introducing myself. I'm Victor Tarapore, as Nitya mentioned. I have worked in sports for 8 years, but my journey is a bit different. And that's partly the reason why I wanted to do this session today with Clever Harvey. I grew up in India, but I spent a few years in Australia, did my primary education in Sydney at a private school over there in Aloysius, came back to India, to Mumbai, when I was 12, did ICSE, and then I did IB at Dhirubhai Ambani International School. After that, I went back to Melbourne, so I can't get enough of Australia. I did a double degree in applied chemistry and business at the Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology, and worked in Australia for a couple of years and then came back. I'm not sure if all of that was clear to you, but there is a bit of a pattern here, and that is I am going from one place to another quite a bit. There's no real structure in my education. In the way I've been brought up, I've been fairly free to explore my avenues. And that is partly a result of the education I've received in Australia, and also in the International Baccalaureate. When I was in Australia, I tried to land a job in the mining industry. I did, but unfortunately at that point in time, I realized just how polluting the industry is. Also, there was a bit of an economic downturn at that time. As a result, I found myself gravitating towards my passion, which is sports. And I found myself on a bus ride to visit a friend in Sydney, thinking about what I want to do with my life. And I found myself just scrolling through Cricinfo, which is this website for cricket nerds, cricket people, aficionados. And I just happened to, a light bulb just happened to appear in my head and just went, well, if I'm looking at this at 11 o'clock at night and I don't find this to be stressful, I don't find this to be taxing, why don't I do something with this? So I quit my job in Australia, came back to India in 2013, August. I was basically unemployed for a few months. And I finally landed a job at an agency, Sports Interactive. They gave me my first crack in this industry. And I was basically a fresher. I just completely raw in the industry, did not know what was going on. And that actually was beneficial because the industry itself at that point in time was nascent. It definitely wasn't as developed as it is now. And also analytics is just gone many a mile from that point on. So I started at Sports Interactive in the business development team. My job in Australia happened to be business development for an IT company there. So I started with that. I transferred some of the skills there, but I happened to have this burning desire for analytics and stats and numbers. I am a numbers guy. So I asked the CEO, his name is Arvind Iyengar, said, listen, can we do something with numbers? Can we get some analytics footprint in India? So at the time, we were partnering up with Star India. We developed a tool to basically automate the clipping process of videos using key events. So in a cricket match, you'd have a 4, you'd have a 6, you'd have a wicket. We would automate this using rudimentary form of artificial intelligence so that we would reduce the workforce on that. We could free up resources at their end. And just got me thinking as to how we can apply stats a little bit more in the day-to-day functioning of our jobs. In 2015, I got the opportunity to work on the Pro Kabaddi League in season 2. I was traveling for that, and that was my first taste into broadcast. And again, completely new, didn't know what was going on, very inexperienced, and I made a bunch of mistakes. I did not really understand what the whole process behind broadcast was. If you've ever seen the Aaron Sorkin show Newsroom, it portrays broadcast in a fairly accurate light. There's chaos, but it's organized chaos. And everyone knows what to do, but everyone knows that there are limited resources to get that done. And sometimes you've just got to be a little abrasive. Sometimes you've just got to put your foot down. And my personality at that point in time was such that I didn't know how to do that. I did a couple of seasons of PKL in 2015 and 16. My first proper gig was the 2016 IPL, where I'm not sure if you would remember, but Sony had the rights to the IPL at that point in time. They had a show called Extra Innings, which was, I'd say, 80% entertainment, 20% match focus. That was a good way of inducting me into the industry and into the means of getting accustomed to work processes in that field. I had a lovely producer and a great director who showed me the ropes, informed me exactly what to do, what not to do. I got my first opportunity to work with proper cricketing legends like Sunil Gavaskar, like Matthew Hayden, Waqar Yunus, Ramiz Raja at that time was also there. Obviously, aside from being starstruck, it just gave me a bit of incentive to try and just impress, because this industry at that time, and still to a stage now, is a lot about word of mouth. If you can develop interpersonal relations with these people through opportunities, it's easier to get a leg up and go higher and progress higher. So that 2016 IPL was a great launch pad for me, because it got me in touch with all of these industry leaders, these cricketing legends. And I found myself wanting to do more of it, but I got roped into a project at Sports Interactive regarding Mumbai Indians. So we had the social media account of Mumbai Indians for IPL 2017. One thing they were looking to do was grow. So one of the ideas that we brainstormed with them was through data, through analytics, and not just, your regular stats. We will try and target our posts to a certain cohort of people. Right now, this seems obvious in the social media landscape of 2022, but 5 years back in 2017, when this was done, it was fairly, I wouldn't say groundbreaking, but it was fairly new. In 2017, when we were working with the Mumbai Indians, we decided to adopt a fairly analytics-heavy approach to targeting posts. And the results spoke for themselves. We managed to grow our Instagram following by 25%, Twitter by 10%, and Snapchat at the time was one of our KRAs by, I think, 33%. So good growth on all of those platforms. So that kind of sidetracked me away from broadcast, that stint at Mumbai Indians. But we did manage to do a little bit of shooting with Karan Pollard and with the great man Sachin Tendulkar. So being the behind the camera at that point in time also piqued that fire within me to rejoin broadcast and again get involved in it. I shifted to Star Sports in 2019 December. After the amazing 2019 ODI World Cup final that Ben Stokes knocked and the match being decided by boundary count. So I joined the fulcrum of sports broadcast in India, which was Star Sports at that point in time. I drew upon my experiences to give a bit of impetus to the analytics team there. If you might remember, there was a show called Select Dugout in the IPL from 2018 till 2021. We didn't have it in 2022. I really wanted to get involved, get analytics a higher priority, because I found that platform was great with receptive talent who could drive home the message of analytics. I'll give you an example of that. Virat Kohli in 2019 was struggling against a leg spinner. His name was Shreyas Gopal. He got out to him a few times. I think it was 4 times, 3 of which were googlies. Googlies are a type of delivery that spin the other way. So if you're a leg spinner, it'll spin from one direction, a googly will spin the other way. We determined this weakness. We did a package on Kohli against googlies. It basically got picked up by Sanjay Bangar. Sanjay Bangar was involved with the RCB management at that time. He was free after the 2020 season. So he was working in broadcast in 2020, and he happened to mention this, that, this was one thing we did not notice, and now we have. And it's because of this that we have identified a bit of a chink in Kohli's armor. The crux of what I'm trying to say here is 10 years ago, if you were to say to a person, you, through the power of data, are able to identify a person's weakness, not by visually looking at them, which is, don't get me wrong, extremely important. But if you can identify that weakness, spell it out to a person who is in the know with this batter and have a positive impact on them, it would have been laughed upon. People would have just said, well, data doesn't mean anything. It's just cold hard numbers, cold hard facts. Data can be manipulated. And to a certain extent, it can be. But the way stats are is that if you have a big enough data size, and if you have a strong enough trend, a R-square value of over 9.95, it becomes almost irrefutable. So I've worked on the IPL in the last 3 seasons, 2020 to 2022, the current one that just happened. I just got off the 2022 T20 World Cup that England won in Australia, and being from Australia, I hate the fact that England won. They played a decent brand of cricket, and again, from analytics, you can understand why they were successful. They were successful because they understood that in the power play, in the first 6 overs of a T20 match, is the time to capitalize on in Australia in the months of October to November. They knew that because they had this analyst there. His name is Nathan Lehman. You might have seen these memes online where he would hold up a placard and just, say something like 3 or 2 or something like that to the KKR bowlers. And that's born from data. They would understand that at that point in time, if a batter is at the crease, they would need a specific type of bowler to bowl to him to ensure that the batter doesn't take advantage or ideally get out. That's an explicit example of data influencing on-field decisions in real time. Especially with the IPL, I've had the first-hand knowledge in just how analytics has grown. I happen to speak to a team mentor from 2008, and what they would do would just look at their bare bones data. They just say, okay, have fun, try and maximize the first 6 overs, and after that, we'll see how it goes. There was no planning involved in an IPL match or in a T20 match back in 2008 through to 2010. From 2011 onwards, when CSK had developed a dominant winning culture, not just in the IPL, but in the Champions League T20 tournament, that's when data really started to take the form. And that leached into the national team setup as well. The first analysts were hired around that time for the Indian national team. You'll probably see them with laptops on the side of the boundary, having chats with the management, just informing the coach, okay, this is something to discuss for the next match, or this is something we should probably look into changing at the drinks break. With the IPL, we've gone from fairly basic data influencing decisions to having data influence auction strategy. Right now, the flavor of the season is left arm pacers and extremely fast hit the deck bowlers who bowl over 150 kilometers an hour. And what I mean by that is you'll have certain categories of players that batters might not be very comfortable with in this moment. It's always a cat and mouse game in cricket. If you have a batter who is dominating proceedings, the bowler will obviously try and find a weakness. The bowler might find a weakness, and the batter has to counter that. And in doing so, the batter might expose another weakness of his. So to give you an example with Virat Kohli again, during the 2018 tour of England, he had a fairly open stance, which means he would play the ball a little open-chested like this. In 2014, he was a lot more closed-chested. So he was like this. Now that's great for a ball, which is seaming around a lot, but when it's not seaming around, you're more likely to nick it off. And he found that in 2014. Small minor adjustments like that resulted in him being the dominant force that he was in 2018. Now, that open stance was an Achilles in 2021 because he was actually nicking off more because the bowlers were getting a lot more swing. So for him, it was cat and mouse. You've countered one aspect of a bowler, but there's another aspect that might have been neglected while you were trying to focus on that. That's a bit of the technique aspect. That's also the numbers come into there by metrics such as percentage of dismissals caught behind by the keeper or by the slips. I'll take a step back for a second and I'll just detail what it means to be an analyst in broadcast. So the basic requirements are for you to be extremely game aware. You need to know your sport inside and out. And you obviously need to have passion to learn more. You need to really want to stick around 12, 14, 16 hours a day and just work because there's something within you that says, there's something that I need to contribute here, or there's something that I feel that could help in a certain way. I found that when I initially started my role in broadcast, the way I would give data is also as important as the data you give. So there are a lot of egos out there. There are a lot of people who think they are right. And a lot of these people are people who might not necessarily be very data literate, if I may say so. However, the proof is in the pudding. If you can mention something to someone before that event happens, and in effect, become a crystal ball gazer, that builds respect and that builds your credibility. I'll give you an example. 2015 World Cup, we were pitching a different type of software for Star, and one of those was the catching area maps. We just happened to notice Virat Kohli, I think it was India versus Pakistan, was one of the India matches going on that day. And we mentioned to them, Virat Kohli, 35% of his catches are in the long on region. So he's a right-handed batsman, he's going straight down. That's when he's trying to loft and play his strokes and get caught. Just so happened 2 overs later, after we pitched this map, he did get out, and he got out in long on. And that sticks in your memory. If you can predict what might happen, it probably won't happen more than 5-10% of the time. But if it does happen, timing is of the essence. You need to capitalize on that. And we did. And we got that contract and we managed to do some catch maps there as well. So yeah, be aware, know your sport, know your demographic. We found through market research that the Indian fan is getting a lot more knowledgeable. He or she doesn't just want to have a look at average and strike rate and economy rates. They want to go deeper. We are in the process of slowly delivering that to them, because we don't want to, obviously as a broadcaster, you need to cater to the masses. So we don't just want to give them a certain diet. We want to improve on that. We introduced this star power rating in the Asia Cup in 2022, which is, the hope is trying to rival the ICC rankings as they currently stand. We rate batters and bowlers on a whole variety of parameters, and that's adaptability, how they adapt to match situations, consistency, how consistent are they in their performances, how often do they score 30 plus, so how often do they take 2 or more wickets. And this project was actually born in 2015, before the time I actually joined Star. It had kind of laid in the cold storage freezer at Star for a few years. And the reason for that is, at that point in time, T20s weren't really the norm. You had focus on ODIs and tests. And ever since the pandemic started, the first format of the game to really pick off was T20 cricket. So it was decided to bring this in because Asia Cup is our property and take it from there. The one thing I'd like, hopefully for you guys to take away, is that if I had structure in my education at university or even before then to exactly determine what skills I would require to succeed in this industry, I would have saved a good 2-3 years. And I think it's a good reason why folks from Clever Harvey, it's basically good what these guys are doing, because they're giving you structure. Because you don't know, it's not easy to know exactly what you want when you're 15 through to 18. It's sometimes nice to have that exposure, even if it's for a day or even if it's for a few hours, to really get a sense of, is this what I really want? I'd spent 3 years really defining what I really liked, and I'm now in a space where I can set my agenda and really dictate to other people and to myself that this is what I want, this is how I want it, and this is the time frame in which I want it to be achieved. So if you can get the opportunity to really dig in and find out exactly what you want, do it. And this is not just for analytics. This is for every single career stream that you might have or that you might be thinking of. That's it from my end. If you guys have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you so much. It was genuinely a really insightful session. I feel like I learned a lot from you. And I'm sure everyone else did as well. We're open to questions now. So the first question is, what are the basics I need to do for working in the back end for broadcasting a live cricket match?
If you're in the back end for analytics, you need to firstly be good at querying. So you need to be familiar with database querying tools like SQL. Python might help. And just be aware of records off the fly. So like Kohli has 71 centuries across formats. Sachin has 100 centuries. Bradman's average is 99.94. Stuff like that. So again, that draws into the whole knowing your sport, doing research, and that also derives from being passionate about it. I wouldn't put the amount of effort I am doing right now for any other job. That's for sure.
So our next question, where did you get the basic idea that you wanted to go into the sports industry? Or did it come from you used to playing games like cricket?
That's a really nice question as well. So a bit of it was born from my experiences in playing cricket. In Australia, I played great cricket. There, I played a little bit of cricket in India as well. So the passion for cricket was always there. The impetus for me to really do something about my career came on a bus ride to Sydney when I was in Australia. When I was looking at the scores of some match on Cricinfo, and I came across an article by this gentleman called Anant Narayan. He still is at Cricinfo. He's a brilliant data scientist, and he manages to couple that with a great form of writing as well. So it's very engaging the way he writes. And just got me thinking, it's like, this is really what I want. Numbers, sport. I love sport. I love numbers. How can I make this work? I quit my job 2 weeks later. I basically tried to land a job in Australia, but at that point in time, the barrier to entry there was a little higher. You needed to have a degree in sports science and stats for you to really crack the industry there. So I knew India was a fairly nascent market, and I also knew that the scope for India was far bigger because Australia's population is 25 million, India's is 1.4 billion now. So you've got a 60x potential for growth compared to the Australian market. Got me thinking, got me into action, managed to land a gig in Sports Interactive in 2014 and took it from there.
So next question is predicting outcomes a big part of data analysis?
Yeah, that's the rabbit out of the hat aspect of data analysis. If you get that prediction element right, it sticks in your mind. I'll give you another example. We had an instance in the 2021 World Cup when Pakistan beat India by 10 wickets. Shaheen Afridi completely gutted India's top order. He's a left-arm quick, and he operates in the power play, meaning the first 6 overs, and he operates in the last 5 overs. We predicted that, we mentioned data suggesting that India's batters have a weakness against left-arm pace. And lo and behold, again, the same thing happened in 2022 in certain matches. If you can predict something, it's definitely a wow moment for people because they're like, you said that and it did happen. How did you do that? And then they get interested in like the process behind it. Oh, it's through data. Oh, okay. So tell me how you do that. And then the conversation starts rolling and then we can take it from there. It's important, no doubt. It is interesting. It's interesting just how often we get it right and how often we get it wrong as well, because it's not like stats is foolproof. Because what we're doing with stats is we're trying to quantify human movement and human reaction, and that obviously doesn't follow models. It's not going to be accurate 100% of the time. But if you can get it, and if you are relatively good at it, great.
Our next question is, what softwares are used for broadcasting?
So broadcasting actually is a little basic right now. It's basically your SQL and Excel, if I'm being honest. And we do have a interface that's been created from the back end by the coders at a company in Tamil Nadu that we use. So it's nothing very fancy at the moment. However, that's just cricket. Now, abroad, we have people working and doing a hell of a lot of good work on modeling through Python, through artificial intelligence, and coming up with really interesting ways of modeling new data. Totally dependent on the industry. Right now in India, it's still nascent with regards to that. If you can develop your SQL, your Python, all of those programming coder skills, you do pretty well here.
I think our last question is, what qualifications do you need to get into the field?
So right now I didn't have any qualifications. I just had a burning degree of passion and just had some good fortune and also a lot of hard work to get to where I am right now. Having said that, there are sports science degrees, and one university in particular has been the shining light globally for that, and that's Loughborough University. You might have heard of it. It's basically where the cricket bowlers get tested for their bowling actions. So if you straighten your arm more than, I think it's 15 degrees now when you're bowling, that's considered to be throwing. It's not actually legal. Where they actually do this testing is Loughborough University. So that's a great place to get to where I am, to do what I'm doing right now. And also just to build a sense of awareness in what you're doing, get involved in all of these educational courses. The fact that you're in this right now is a great start for you, because you have that curiosity, you have that passion to really try and do something and not just bank on the opinion of others. So it's good to get your hands dirty. It's good to hit up contacts and say, hey, can I just get an internship here? Or can I just get some experience here? Because I'd really like to do something about that. If you show that initiative, chances are you are more than likely to do well. You are more than likely to have a fulfilling career. And that is something ultimately that we're all, I mean, yeah, money's great as well, but if you don't have that sense of, as Robert Frost would say, uniting my avocation and my vocation, then what are you doing for 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 hours of the day?
Where are the predictions using data analytics used?
It's used a hell of a lot in Select Dugout. So there's this program we did from IPL 2018 to 2021, where we would have this panel of 3 experts helmed by the late great Dean Jones and Scott Stiers. And a couple of other legends. So you'd have your Matthew Hayden, you had Anil Kumble, you had Sanjay Banga, you had a huge pool of talent there. And we'd give them information saying that, batsman-wise weakness is leg spin. So keep tuned. He might bring the leg spinner on if the captain of the bowling team hadn't brought a leg spinner on. Or if the leg spinner was bowling, keep tuned because there might be something that happens here. Now, the way we kind of moved away a little bit from it towards the entertainment aspect was introducing this thing called, big overs and wicket alerts. So we'd get the whole studio to light up in red for a wicket alert, where the panel would predict a wicket, and they would explain why they would say that I predict a wicket. They would say that our back end folks, so people like me, have informed us that this person's weakness is off spin, or this person is really bad against left arm pace. And that's why I'm going in for this. Converse is we'd expect a big over from someone who's really good against left arm orthodox. We expect him to smash 3 sixes this over. And for that reason, I'm predicting a big over because this batsman's strike rate against left arm orthodox is whatever it is. So it is integrated seamlessly into broadcast. It's not like a standalone element. Where I think it becomes a standalone element is in the realm of fantasy. And that's another big upcoming industry. It's, I think, 34,000 crore industry in 2021. So that's a massive chunk of the pie that we as broadcasters need to tap into. We've done a bit in Asia Cup 2022, but we need to do a hell of a lot more to really tap into that.
Someone asked about, I think you mentioned Loughborough University. I think they want to know a little bit more about it, if you do know.
Yeah, sure. So one of the people I worked with at Star, he shifted base to Loughborough, did a master's there in 2021. He's currently working at Sky Sports UK as an analyst, basically the same role that we're doing, but in football. Loughborough is great for the really technical side of things. They'll actually show you how the elbow extends while you're playing a pull shot and what the optimal angle for playing a pull shot is to get the maximum trajectory. So if you want to hit the biggest six, the optimal angle of hitting a pull shot is whatever it is. And the optimal trajectory, I think, is 42 degrees off the horizon. So they will go into that level of technicality. But for broadcast, we're still not there yet in terms of just how much we want to go in depth in this. I think the average fan doesn't really want to care about how much the launch angle for a pull shot for six goes. It's more along the lines of, I want to see the biggest six, show me how to do it, rather than show me the physics and the mathematics behind it.
Actually, I play under 19 cricket in India right now for Maharashtra. Yeah. So my only question was either doing BBA or BCom and going all this business field as a graduation, all this stuff. As from business house, I should take a BBA or I should go for sports analytics and all that stuff.
Look, I'll be honest, the chances of you succeeding are heavily dependent on your skill set at this age. If you feel yourself being able to shift through the age groups easily, go for it. Because the opportunities, even for Ranji trophy cricketers nowadays, are fantastic. You can make a comfortable livelihood by doing that. But if you want something to really fulfill yourself, and if you do have an inclination towards mathematics or stats or anything like that, broadcast is a good way of tapping into that desire to work in sports. As to whether you should do a BBA or a BCom, mate, I don't know. I think you've got to really evaluate the choices yourself. Have an internship. Try and get an internship somewhere where you can understand what you really want. Because when I was in university, I did a couple of internships at a chemical plant and I did one at a bank. And that really didn't help me in terms of it helped me in the sense of what I didn't want to do. I definitely didn't want to work in a bank and I definitely didn't want to work in a chemical plant. So if you can narrow down what you really want, it's easier for you to really set yourself goals to achieve that.
Do you use sports analysis for other sports apart from just cricket?
Yeah, of course. I used cricket as the analogy because I'm assuming everyone is at least aware of it or has been exposed to it. But yeah, I mean, the development of analytics in cricket is actually mid-tier at the moment. The biggest use of analytics in any sport that I've seen is baseball. Baseball has crazy number of stats. It's almost frightening the amount of detail they go into. AFL as well is another example of that. Australian football, played in Australia predominantly. The way they go into stats, it's minute. It goes into the realm of, well, is this just excessive? The reason why they do that is also because they've got a developed gaming industry there and a betting industry there. So that level of data sophistication feeds into the whole narrative of, I want to know as much as I can so I can make the right bet or I can make the right fantasy choice for my team, which is again why we need to tap into this fantasy market, because I do see India 5-10 years down the line and cricket 5-10 years down the line rivaling baseball in its minutiae of stats.
What's your prediction after analyzing the World Cup that's going on right now? Do you have any quick predictions off the top of your head?
I have a feeling that teams who are used to hot and humid conditions will do well. So Asian teams have done fairly well so far. You've had Saudi Arabia beating Argentina. You had Japan defeating Germany. And we've also seen a few of the African, I know Senegal won for the first time a couple of days back. So my ultimate winner will probably be one of Brazil, Argentina. Top four aside from those two might be France, because they're defending champions, because Mbappe is in crazy form. And maybe Germany, because they're always there. The Germans are always in the semis. They just happen, they have a knack of reaching the semis, and then it's anyone's game.
Great. So thank you so much for answering all of the questions that I had and everyone else had. We're so honored to have had you as a speaker for today's session. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day on a Sunday to come and help out students and parents in the Clever Harvey tribe. So with this, we end today's session. I hope this was helpful for everyone. Victor, if you'd like, you can share like your details or like shout out any social media or anything in case you'd like people to reach out to you.
You can follow me on Instagram at my last name, that's Tarapore.Victor. Twitter is simple, it's just my first name dot last name. My email address is victor.tarapore@gmail.com. So feel free to reach out to me. I'll try my best to answer your questions whenever I can. And I really hope that this has been useful to some of you. Even one person, that would be great. I hope it's not been a colossal waste of anyone's time. And thank you for having me.
No, I think everyone really enjoyed it. We had so many questions and everyone's really into it. So stay tuned for more sessions just like these. And I hope you guys have a really good Sunday.